This video demonstrates the methods and techniques needed to perform the thin layer chromatography experiment. We have a 600 milliliter beaker, a piece of filter paper with the bottom cut off, and a piece of tin foil. Solvent, that serves as our mobile phase. We have our thin layer chromatography plate, a pencil and ruler for marking on our chromatography plate. We will have our 4 known analytes and 2 unknown analytes that we will use to, the 4 known analytes will be used to determine what's in the 2 unknown analytes. Some solvent, in this case it'll be ethanol. We'll need 6 watch glasses. We will need some thin diameter capillary tubes, and there's another video that will show you how to make those from large diameter capillary tubes, and a spatula. So the first thing to do is to set up the developing chamber using the beaker and the filter paper and solvent. So I want to put the filter paper into the beaker, wrap it around the sides, and I'm going to put the paper in so that it covers the white letters up on the beaker, so that when I turn it around I'm looking through the clear side. And then I'm going to add the solvent, and I want about 11 milliliters of solvent so that I have enough. I'll pour all that in, and this will then form the mobile phase for my experiment. I will take the tin foil, and the tin foil becomes my top. Now, the reason I'm going through the trouble of putting a piece of filter paper in here is because I want my developing chamber to be filled with the vapors of the solvent system. Now, your book explains this, but what you want in more detail, and you should go look at that detail, but the idea is that I want the vapors of the solvent or solvent system to fill the chamber so that I don't get selective evaporation off the surface of my TLC plate while I'm doing the experiment. If I do that, I'm going to get bad. If that happens, I get bad results. Now I want to go ahead and set up my developing chamber early because I want to give time for the solvent to wet this filter paper. So what you can see is that the solvent is beginning to creep up the filter paper, and I can help it a little bit by wetting it like this. Okay? But I just want to get that filter paper thoroughly wet, but it's got some time to do that while I come and mark my TLC plate. Now I'll have a TLC plate. This TLC plate is a heavy aluminum sheet that has a layer of silicon oxide on top. That's the white stuff. And the silicon oxide is the stationary phase. So I have the solvent that acts as my mobile phase, the silicon oxide that acts as my stationary phase, and it is a partitioning between the stationary phase and the solvent phase that separates my analytes as they travel up the TLC plate. Now there's a couple of things to consider when getting ready to use TLC. One, I don't want to touch the face of the plate. I want to handle it only by the sides and the edges. So pick it up, hold it like this, okay? And I don't want to bend it or flex it because this silicon oxide coating will flake off. So I just need to be very careful. Now I've already marked this one, and there's a couple of things to think about. Number one is where I'm going to put my analytes on the face of it near the bottom. So I want to carefully take a line and come up about 1 centimeter or 1.5 centimeters, lightly, very lightly draw a line across from side to side, and that then becomes the line upon which I'm going to place the analytes. Then I'm going to put some cross marks on that line so that I leave about 1 centimeter to 1.5 centimeters from the edges, because I can have edge effects and I want to minimize those for these analytes that are near the edges. And then I want to put labels across the top of what analytes are going to go on those specific positions. And I'll show you how to put the analytes on in just a minute. But I want to label the top. You can see perhaps that some of the material flaked off at the top, and as I was writing, and I started to label at the bottom and it didn't come off, but if it had come off like it came off at the top, I would have messed up the TLC plate. I wouldn't be able to use it and have to start all over again. So now I need to transfer my solid analyte from the bottle onto the plate. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to take my watch glass, spatula. In this case, I'm going to take a little bit of aspirin powder. I'm going to get a small amount, and all I need is just a tiny amount. So if you can see that, it's just a very small amount on the watch glass. I will dissolve that in a small amount of ethanol. So just squeeze out a little bit of ethanol. Okay. And I can roll that around and let it dissolve. And then I'll pick up a capillary tube that I've made into a small diameter, and I'll just stick the end of the capillary tube into the liquid, and the liquid will, by capillary action, draw up into the tube. Now I want to make a small dot of solvent on the TLC plate.